Does Devin Booker's defensive stats reflect his on-court improvements? Again, I want to make it clear I don't place too much stock in defensive stats, which is also a problem for me because I'm not Mr. X's and O's guy. I can't tell you where everyone's supposed to be. I read what I can, I watch what I can. I'm going to try and definitely go beyond steals and blocks. The numbers, though, do not support that Devin Booker has been a demonstrably better defender when you're looking at an individual level. His steal rate and block rate are slightly up, so that's fine. When you look at RAPM, that's just the defensive one I'll go to adjust for luck this season. He still ranks among the worst defenders in the league. When you look at ESPN's defensive RPM, he's a little bit higher from the bottom, which is better than he's been in recent seasons. He's above, the way I put it is he ranks higher than Donovan Mitchell in defensive RPM. And I don't think Donovan Mitchell's a great defender either. Those two have just been sort of thrust together so often that I'm using that as, hey, there he is. What I have noticed from watching Devin Booker is that he feels more engaged away from the ball. And I guess you could say even on the ball. There have been situations where he's defended really well on the ball for stretches. I feel like we're seeing those more now. He is defending the number one option a little bit more often this season than he was last season. He's not covering the toughest matchups overall, though. I want to make that clear. Oh, it's actually down from last season. I'm reading that wrong. This is from B-Ball Index. He is guarding the number one option 16.7% of the time. That's the third highest mark of his career per B-Ball Index. That's not huge. They're putting him on, that he can either chase guys around or he's going to be on the standstill shooters. That's fine. You have the personnel when you have Mikal Bridges. You have Chris Paul, so you don't have to put Devin Booker on opposing point guards. You have Jay Crowder. They have the ability to do all this, and they don't need to try and put him on bigs because DeAndre Ayton's not a liability. Even having Saric has been someone who can take on those guys. Torrey Craig, too. Fantastic for them this year. I think the biggest difference is coming away from the ball on the way he's closing out, contesting shots from shooters who are firing up off the catch. That's something the energy level feels like it's more there. And then his steal rate, I do think, reflects an uptick in activity. So that's good. But his defensive box plus minus, if you want to throw it's right around where it was last season. So I don't think you can look at the numbers for it. I will say, though, that the Suns are a good defensive team this year, can defend a bunch of different ways. I don't know how much value you ascribe to Devin Booker as the reason that's happening, but he's a part of a team that is currently fifth in points allowed per possession. And so it can't be all bad. I'm not trying to even give him credit for it. And what I've noticed, again, it's come more so away from the ball. But if you're having him on the court right now and the defense is substantially worse with him on the floor, plus 7.2 points worse per 100 possessions, when you dig a little bit deeper, opponents aren't shooting a crap ton better when he's on the court. The Suns aren't getting worse at forcing turnovers or committing a ton more fouls when he's on the floor. This is not someone who's upending your defense, in my opinion. And a lot of those lineups, I'd probably say, there was the starting lineup noise at the beginning of the year for the Suns. Some of that has normalized, is still continuing to normalize. Like, those numbers can certainly skew it when you're looking at sample sizes so small and narrow. But he's also leading bench units on his own, and those have been absolutely destroying opponents. They are over plus 10 points per 100 possessions. They're outscoring their opponents by when Devin Booker plays without Chris Paul. And that's why this is probably something Adam and I will talk about maybe when we do our MVP awards or do something to reflect the season. And by the way, those Booker lineups without Chris Paul, they're not good on defense. That was meant to be. They have a 122.4 offensive rating against a 114 defensive rating. That was the point I was trying to make. But the fact that he can be in control of the offense without Chris Paul on the floor, I think it speaks that the Suns are more than Chris Paul and that we shouldn't so readily just insert Chris Paul into the MVP discussion. You want to put him top 5. I totally get it. Phoenix's supporting cast has improved a great deal independent of adding him. I don't think they would have been this good without Chris Paul. I want to make that clear. But I do view this as an equitable star partnership. And the MVP award, I don't know if this is right or wrong. I am more inclined to reward guy. I don't want to say we're doing it alone, but there are clear demarcations between the stars that you're selecting and then their second best player, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is great. Jokic is world's better. LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You can argue both of them are top 7. That's fine. LeBron James is a lot better than Anthony Davis. This Devin Booker Chris Paul partnership feels more like Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. That might even be a bad example because no, I think it's Donovan Mitchell gets too much shit there. They feel like an equitable partnership. I mentioned Durant and Harden. Like that. That's what I'm looking at when I see Chris Paul and Devin Booker. They're so equal. The other thing, by the way, Devin Booker draws double teams on a higher percentage of his possessions. Chris Paul is drawing more double teams per game, but he has the ball in his hands more when you're looking at the raw possessions totals. On the percentage of their possessions, Devin Booker is averaging is being double teamed more often by that metric. And the Suns, this is a few games old. I would have to go back and look at these numbers. They're averaging 1.19 points per possession when Devin Booker is double teamed. That's also a nod to his shot making. First and foremost, it's a nod to how good he would be, how good of a playmaker he's become. And I don't want to use this equivalent, but 1.19 points per possession is about the second or third best offense in the NBA. And so the fact that he draws that much attention on the ball, and then what he does away from the ball, a good cutter, and he's had to change his role, playing off the ball more. That's an adjustment. And so I feel like I'm not trying to downplay what Chris Paul does. I just feel very awkward that nationally there seems to be this willingness to dismiss so much of what Devin Booker is doing.